My name is Keysha, and this is my story. My mother was pregnant with my brother at 13 years old. She had him 2 weeks after she turned 14. She immediately became pregnant again with me, and at 14 years old, and had me 2 weeks, almost to the day after she turned 15. She was sad, young, traumatized, vulnerable. We, of course, had a very rough upbringing. We lived in the worst neighborhoods in Miami. We moved around a lot, couldn't stay in a home. I moved about 8 times before I graduated high school. We sometimes had our lights off, no water, lack of food in our fridge. That was just life for us. And we felt sad for ourselves. We felt sad for my mom, but there was really not much that we could do about it. That was just life. And with the neighborhood we lived in, that was life for everybody. Yeah, so the neighborhood I lived in, it was really bad. And I can recall one time when I was about 11, 12 years old, walking home from school, and I walked right into a gunfight. I mean, huge guns to the left and the right of me, bullets flying over my head, and my friend and I, we just dropped down, literally rolled under a car, covered our ears, and just listened until the gunshots ended. That was typical life for us. So life was really hard for us. My mother, self-admittedly, her life was a mess. Because of all the pressures, drinking, smoking, at one point she ended up in jail in the Bahamas, and life was just bad for us. And at one point, this couple came in, Sister Ethany and Uncle Bev, and they decided that we're gonna take your family under our wings and we're gonna start taking you to church. And that was something that had been absent in our life up to that point. And this church, Ebenezer Assemblies of God, they saw the need and they acted immediately. They helped put food in our fridge. They gave us transportation. When my mom was out, they made sure that my brother and I were safe, and that changed our lives. We ended up inviting our whole family to church, and my grandfather, who was a struggling alcoholic, he was kind of mean, just a lost soul, the most lost soul you can imagine. He started going to church and he gave his life to Christ. And until he died last October 31st, he was literally in his hospital bed, still leading souls to Christ. And I'm thankful for that. So not only did the church work with my brother and myself, they also really focused in on my mom. And they started to witness to her, to tell her about the goodness of God. And it hit home for her. It touched her spirit, and she decided she wasn't drinking, she wasn't smoking, she wasn't partying, she wasn't doing any of that. That was now her old life, and she started anew. She started to go back to school. She earned her GED, her associates, her bachelor's, her master's, and now she is working on her PhD. She's a licensed mental health therapist, a social worker, works at the University of Miami, and she started her own nonprofit called A Season of Comfort, where she travels the nation encouraging people who are just like her, who are just in those situations, on how they can get up and change their entire life. So God stepped in and changed my entire life. Fast forward now to 2010, my husband and our family relocated to Pittsburgh. We ended up in the West End, failing school system, drugs, gang violence. It was the same situation that I was in growing up. We had to sit back and start to pray and figure out, God, what are we gonna do to change our neighborhood? And through prayer and a lot of conversations, we ended up starting a nonprofit organization called Hope for Tomorrow. HOPE stands for Helping Ourselves Produce Excellence, because that's what we intend to do. Because of this family who saw my mom in need, saw my brother and I needed help, they stepped in, they brought us to church, they introduced us to Christ and to the goodness of God. We have a true story of redemption, and that's what we intend to do for our neighborhood. Our Hope for Tomorrow, it began years ago for me, but it continues today, and it will continue for tomorrow. My husband and I would listen to Dr. Kurt every morning, early in the morning on the radio, and we loved his teachings, and we've even watched him on TV and thought that this was just part of a national broadcast, until one day at the end of his message, we heard someone say, "Come visit Orchard Hill in Wexford," and we kind of looked at each other and said, Wexford is right around the corner. So we immediately grabbed our kids and we came and we started listening to him here live and in person, and we've loved it. My name is Keysha, and this is my story.